What's the fastest way you've seen a CEO ruin a company? A construction company near me was pulling $100 to $200 million in revenue every year and growing constantly. Then the owner died and his frat bro failson was handed the reins. Within a month, a quarter the employees had either been fired or quit. After 4 months, the rental companies were showing up and repoing lifts and cranes/carry decks in the middle of the day because they weren't being paid. Almost 3/4 of the employees had quit by this point because paychecks kept bouncing. Before 6 months had passed, what was left was sold for a pittance to another company that just wanted what was left of the maintenance contracts. So like 6 months to bomb the company he'd been groomed to take over since he was a teenager to rubble and piss on the ashes. That's impressive. How does one manage to go from somewhere north of $10 million a month to having your paychecks bounce in a month? Edit. Alright, I get it. There's a difference between gross and profit. And trust is very important. All it takes is squandering 1 month's revenue on a new house. Most companies of that size would never recover from the loss of cash flow. Had a friend who, after the father died, took control of the family mason business. He would take the down payment money on jobs and spend mainly on drugs. Ruined it within a year. Took a job at a tech startup in the 90s with the promise of fast growth and opportunity. Things really took off in the second year, and we opened up several more branches in different states while I was promoted to production manager. The company hired a young CEO who was only a couple of years older than me. Sometimes he would stay at our location for a couple of weeks at a time, and he started driving really nice sports cars to work. When he would leave to other cities, he would leave his cars in the parking lot of our branch. There were Corvettes, Porsches, Audis, and more. After the second year of promising growth, the business suddenly stopped while the owners visited and yelled at the entire crew for not managing our money and told us that they were in debt by over $1 million. We were all given the task of dismantling the equipment and preparing it to be sold and shipped before being let go. On our last day, when the building was empty, we all noticed that the row of sports cars was still there and the owner had placed for sale signs on them. It turned out that they were all bought as company vehicles, and the CEO had done this at each business location. We all still were yelled at in a furious rage by the CEO and owner for not being responsible people. Wait, CEO squandered company money, and when they got into debt, the CEO and owner are yelling at the workers. I'm surprised that guy didn't walk out with a letter opener decorating his throat. I'm surprised he didn't end up being hired as the new CEO for Dell with an even bigger salary, or something like that. Just saw on the news a Texas logistics company CFO was sentenced to 51 months in prison for wire fraud for transferring company funds to his bank account and destroying the company, causing it to shut down and lay everyone off. The kicker is, he was convicted of the same felony in 1994, so second time he'd done it. Fool me twice. Well, you can't get fooled again. Fool me once, shame on you. Teach a man to fool me, and I will be fooled for the rest of my life. I used to work at a company that had a project manager who would just write purchase orders to a fake company that was himself. The higher-ups didn't check the POs in details, and he just pocketed the money. The best part is the police were called, but whatever he did wasn't technically illegal because he rendered the service. Yeah, if he worded the purchase order with something vague enough like, provide expertise/management support, then no law would be broken. Company policy, however, would, unless they're that bad. And they probably are, since they let it happen in the first place. This is a known risk when you delegate power, and the reason there's usually tons of annoying but often necessary rules on purchasing. When the CEO of EA moved to being the CEO of Unity, and then immediately shoot himself in the foot with a 12 gauge by changing Unity's publishing policies and causing most devs to drop the engine if he wasn't fired. Wait, he was the CEO of EA before? This explains everything. He was previously famous for saying something to the effect of, "We should be charging microtransactions for reloads in FPS games." Everything makes so much more sense now. It got worse than that. A lot of devs move off Unity because of his decision and decided not to go back even when it was reversed. The reputation was tarnished. Devs saw what they wanted to do, and even if they walked it back, who knew what they might try next? Trust was gone. Sears paid Amazon to make their website. Amazon finishes. Sears execs say it's pointless. Internet is a fad. They give their blessings to Amazon to use the website. How's Sears doing? This has always been crazy to me because Sears was in the position to become Amazon, if not bigger and better, since they were already an existing corporation and not a company trying to build out logistics. They probably would have had a monopoly. Yet they blew it big time. Started as a physical book catalog company and literally bungled becoming a modern-day version of exactly that. They dominated the market since the late 1800s. They had over a century of a head start, and they fumbled the last major step that would have solidified their stance in the modern age for another century. Turns out, the internet is not just a fad for nerds. Randall Stephenson, AT&T. He bought DirecTV and Warner Brothers, including DC Comics, CNN, HBO and so on, for only $175 billion between 2015 and 2018. When everyone was moving to stream services, he thought it was a good idea to buy a cable company that was losing customers by millions and a struggling media company. Me and thousands of people lost their job because of it, including Randall, with a $64 million retirement package. What kills me about this is that he and AT&T were positioned to bundle everything together for customers at an inexpensive rate. Once they went dishless with DirecTV, they could have dominated the market by making it super affordable. And yet, every year, they raised prices to make up for the loss of customers, which, in turn, made more people cancel. The worst part was, while they were actively destroying DirecTV, Warner Bros. And HBO, they just ignored the entire cell phone division and let AT&T become a shell of a respected company. He tried to run a non-profit library wholesaler like a car dealership, because he was a car dealership guy who knew fuck all about libraries. Most of the senior staff retired and he fired the rest. Then implemented policies that treated us all like children, such as having to put our phones in a box at the front office when we got into work in the morning. Hired a bunch of rando high-level positions who also knew fuck all about libraries. Then he talked some shit about people who couldn't handle change because they'd quit. Refused to allow us to order inventory so libraries couldn't get extra copies when a book unexpectedly blew up. Anyway, I quit when I was handed a coworker's entire job with no extra compensation, or, choice in the matter, and the 60-plus-year-old company was dead within about a year and a half of him becoming CEO. Eddie Lampert at Sears. Took him a few years to do it, but he managed to destroy two 100-year-old companies, Sears and Kmart. He didn't destroy them. He successfully robbed them of hundreds of millions of dollars. That was a methodical and slow, purposeful dismantling and raiding of two huge companies. He knew exactly what he was doing and was extremely successful at it. That was on purpose. He and his friends walked away with people's pensions. I'm surprised he hasn't been Brian Thompson. There was the whole Walgreens Theranos debacle. Fun fact, the CEO who basically ruined Walgreens became the CEO of Jo-Ann Fabrics and basically drove them into bankruptcy too. It's almost like CEOs are helping speedrun the death of strip malls, at least in the case of Jo-Ann Fabrics. What Ed Lampert did to Sears was straight-up criminal. You should look up his kidnapping story. Fascinating. In January 2003, Eddie Lampert was abducted from his Greenwich, Connecticut office parking lot by four men, including ex-Marine Ronaldo Rose. They held him captive in a nearby hotel room, claiming they had been hired to kill him for $1 million but would release him for a ransom. Lampert persuaded his captors to let him order a pizza, and gave them his credit card to pay for it. This allowed authorities to trace and capture his kidnappers. These guys had a $1 million business going and they blew it on a pizza. As a photographer who started at the peak of Flickr, FUCK Marissa Mayer. She destroyed Flickr. Give her credit where it's due. She was also responsible for destroying Tumblr. She has been really effective at being just awful at running companies. Never used Flickr. What did she do? Killed Pro subscription, poor attempt at modernizing the interface, mandatory Yahoo accounts, removed images if you didn't pay, after being back Pro subs, and some other shit that by the time Instagram arrived it was too late to win back photographers. Called his own products crap to the media, and his products were jewelry, won't even last as long as a prawn sandwich. Cautionary Tales did a podcast about this. What I found interesting is that they pointed out that it could be seen as more of a shitty viral journalism thing. I need to listen to it again, but IRC the speech also continued along the lines of, why shouldn't the average working class person also have a decanter, and wear jewelry, etc. But the media went along with his and his audiences guffawing at poor people not being able to afford expensive stuff instead. After the first disastrous speech, he was invited on to Wogan, which was the equivalent of The Late Show. And on that show he said his products were total crap. I watched it at the time, And while Wogan was sorta riling him a little, it was very soft. Ratner coming out with total crap was down to him and him only. That Wogan interview is what did for him. A lot of people were on his side, especially people who'd bought wedding or engagement rings from Ratner's. And then he went on TV and just said, "They're crap." There was a Ratner's where I lived, next to the market where I had a morning job as a young kid, and people were returning rings to Ratner's and demanding money back on payment plans, bought on Hawk. Queues of engaged and recently married couples hoping they'd be able to get a bit of money back, and panicked staff shutting the doors and pulling down the security shutters because they had no idea what to do, because nobody had been prepared for Gerald Ratner saying what he said. They thought he was selling them gold-coated tin instead of real gold. It was viral journalism, but it was started by him trying to dial it back, not by the first interview. Whoever decided no porn on Tumblr. Want it or not, Tumblr was a center point for artists of all kinds, and lots would do kinky stuff. And when they went for it, they went hard. Like a bot would go through and ban you if it found something a little too sexy. Traffic on Tumblr dropped by like 50% in a month. Yahoo. It was Yahoo. Also, the porn detection bot was wildly inaccurate. It flagged a photo of the moon as a nipple. Multi-billion-dollar valuation and devalued to the point where WordPress bought it for a few million. They overpaid. I remember Tumblr. I had found that a girl I had a massive crush on from high school was selling used, piston panties to guys on their 5 years after graduation. I lost track of her after the porn bans came, and I wish I hadn't spent so much on piss pants. I don't know if I'm laughing with you or at you. Silly internet. The guy that ran a lottery on a live stream, then didn't give the winner a PC because he said she had too few subscribes. Had to look up the company. Artesian Builds. It's crazy how in a promotion to improve your reach you absolutely destroyed it. If they set the rules up front that you had to have X number of subscribers, no one would care. It makes sense. They want people with influence to use their product. Crazy how badly they shot themselves in the foot. Michael Lyon, CEO and owner of Leone Real Estate in Sacramento. It was his father's company, but he was able to really expand the company and the brand. They were an anomaly in the real estate world in that they were a family-owned company but dominated the Sacramento region. Until his divorce from his wife, where she went public, and to the FBI, with the videos Michael has been surreptitiously recording of their guests in the bedroom and bathroom. That was pretty darn bad. But when cops went in to make the bust, they found him secretly recording himself with a prostitute. And then the meth came onto his scene. It was amazing to see this man's downfall in real time. Adding a large fleet of Teslas to Hertz Rental, except not having the actual infrastructure or education to keep vehicles charged or clean. This one hits home. Work in EV industry and fly all over. I don't mind driving an EV, but there is nothing like seeing none of these rental places can charge EVs. There is very little infrastructure in a lot of places, so last time I got one was an absolute nightmare because they gave me an uncharged Tesla that was not compatible with anything nearby but superchargers and charge points that were far away. Twice I got to chargers on hopes and dreams. What's the fastest way you've seen a CEO ruin a company? Write in the comments. Also, do you want a second part? Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Bye.